Welcome to The Explainer! Today we're diving into a truly fascinating esoteric framework derived from Rosicrucian teachings regarding something they call the human psychic body. Whether you're already deeply familiar with mystical traditions or you're just profoundly curious about how different schools of thought map out human existence, you are definitely in the right place. We're going to visualize and unpack a completely different kind of human anatomy today, one that extends way beyond blood and bone into unseen energy.
Okay, let's look at our roid map for today. We're going to start by defining the psychic body. Then we'll look at the law of the triangle, map out your immaterial double, explore the wild phantom limb phenomenon, and wrap up with life after physical death. Let's get right into it.
Part 1. Defining the psychic body.
So, before we can really wrap our heads around this text, we kind of need to clear the slate. When we hear the word psychic today, right, we instantly think of psychiatry, psychology, or maybe emotional disorders. But in the Rosicrucian usage, it has absolutely nothing to do with your mental or emotional state. And it doesn't mean the soul either. It strictly and exclusively refers to a distinct psychic body and its own specific level of consciousness.
Now, the text points out that a lot of our modern confusion actually stems from the etymology. The word psychic ultimately derives from the ancient Greek word psyche, which literally means soul. But the Rosicrucians are super precise about this. They acknowledge that linguistic root, sure, but they firmly maintain that the psychic body is a totally separate, unique entity from the immortal soul itself. So, how is this entirely separate body actually formed?
That brings us to Section 2, the law of the triangle.
They view humans as dual beings governed by a core cosmological rule, and it's called the law of the triangle. Basically, it states that bringing together two complementary conditions always creates a third. It's like a cosmic equation. Take the physical body, which gets its material existence from a predominantly negative energy they term spirit. Then you take the soul, which is a purely positive spiritual essence. When you combine those two opposing elements, boom, they mathematically produce a third thing, the intermediary psychic body, which is powered by vital life force.
But when does this triangular union actually happen? Well, the text gives us a very precise timeline. During gestation, the physical body and the soul both exist, but they haven't fully merged yet. The real catalyst is the exact moment of birth. The very second a baby takes its absolute first breath, these two complementary energies, the physical and the spiritual, they forcefully merge. And in that instant, that third energy, the psychic body, springs right into existence.
Moving right along to Section 3, your immaterial double.
Okay, so a new body has been born alongside the physical infant. What does this newly created intermediary body actually look like, and how does it work? According to this tradition, you can basically look at your physical body as nothing more than a material mold. It's literally just the physical casing where this immaterial double, which older texts sometimes call the spiritual body, permanently dwells during your waking hours.
And get this, it is not just some vague, formless cloud of energy. The Rosicrucian framework takes a strikingly literal, anatomical approach. Every single physical organ has a perfect immaterial twin. You have a physical heart, you've got a psychic heart. You've got psychic lungs, psychic kidneys, a psychic stomach, a psychic liver, the whole shebang. It even goes down to the microscopic level. Every single cell in your physical body has an exact psychic counterpart. It's like a complete energy overlay.
Now, over the course of your life, this psychic body plays by three distinct rules. First, its general form is permanent, meaning its overall appearance doesn't drastically change. Second, it does experience growth. It expands in size perfectly in sync with the physical body as a child grows into an adult. But third, and this is absolutely crucial, it is highly vulnerable to vibratory shifts. While the actual form stays the same, its vibratory frequency constantly fluctuates based on internal and external causes. For example, if you start getting sick, that illness will actively shift the frequency of your psychic organs.
Next up, Section 4, the phantom limb phenomenon.
This super specific anatomy actually leads us to a real-world documented medical mystery. It's a question that has baffled doctors for centuries. Why is it that when someone loses an arm or a leg, they often still feel a completely clear, undeniable impression of that missing limb? The text notes that amputees usually report feeling this the strongest during highly subjective states, right in that twilight moment when they're just drifting off to sleep or just waking up.
The Rosicrucian answer to this is actually pretty elegant.
They argue that because physical surgery only alters the physical mold, the operation hasn't touched the organ's psychic counterpart at all. As an independent energy structure, it is still perfectly intact, so a person actually keeps that psychic arm or psychic leg for their entire lifetime. Within this framework, it's living proof that the material body is totally secondary to the subtle body.
And finally, Section 5, Life After Physical Death.
So, this logically brings us to the big one. What happens to this immaterial double when the physical mold finally breaks down and dies? Well, if we compare the lifespans of our three elements, the physical body obviously has the shortest run. The soul, on the other hand, is immortal and eternal. The psychic body sits right in the middle as the intermediary. It absolutely outlasts physical death, but it doesn't live forever. Instead, it goes through a really slow, progressive disintegration that can take several decades to fully complete.
So, you might be wondering, what exactly is this disintegrating body doing during those decades? According to the source text, for the first several months after death, the psychic body just exists in an etheric form. Its vibratory frequency is at a level where it leaves absolutely zero impression on our normal physical senses. You can't see or hear it unless you have specialized psychic faculties. But here is the really fascinating part. Without the physical mold and the vital life force to power it, it is completely devoid of movement or consciousness. It's essentially a totally inert shell.
And this completely turns popular folklore on its head. While superstition is full of stories about active ghosts, haunting houses, moving objects around, and talking to the living, the mystical actuality described here is way quieter. Because the psychic body is totally inert and unconscious, the whole idea of an interactive spirit flat out contradicts this framework. The text explicitly debunks the concept of interactive ghosts, framing it as a total misunderstanding of these natural, slowly disintegrating remnants.
Just a quick point of clarification before we wrap up. If you read other esoteric texts, you probably come across the term astral body. The source clarifies that while other traditions use astral body to describe this exact same intermediary structure, Rosicrucian teachings deliberately avoid using it. Why? Because the word astral implies a connection to the stars and the influence of celestial bodies. They stick to psychic body to keep the focus strictly on this internal energetic anatomy we've been exploring today.
And that brings us to the end of our source text, which signs off with a traditional closing, with best wishes for peace profound, your class master. You know, regardless of what you personally believe about the soul or the afterlife, seeing human anatomy mapped out in such a radically different, layered way is just incredibly thought-provoking. It really leaves us with a fascinating question to chew on. If we actually possess layers of existence that are completely invisible to a microscope, how much of our own reality are we truly perceiving right now? Thank you so much for exploring this with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.